Hello everybody, Idre here, and today I am going to be doing the third installment in my Great Classic Albums series. Now before I go into this video, I want to make one thing clear. I am going to be editing this video a little more to put some little titles of the albums. I usually don't do too much editing on my videos because I want it to be kind of direct and like I'm speaking to whoever's watching. But this one will have a bit of editing. Second, I don't know if you've caught on, but I'm kind of not doing classic album reviews anymore. Instead, I'm going to be compiling 10 albums and then putting them together in a video such as this. And the last thing is that there's no specific theme for each of these videos. It just so happens that today's video is going to be mainly towards industrial bands and some of that kind of stuff. But none of this is really that intentional. But I am always listening to music, and I go through different times where I'm listening to one genre a little more than another, and that is just what happens, because that's just how we work as humans. But regardless, I'm going to go over 10 great classic albums, and let's get started. The first album I'm going to be covering is the debut album from the German band New, the self-titled album from 1972. This is a great krautrock album. It is not only just a great krautrock album, but it is super influential and has a major role in the development of the genre as a whole. It is very simplistic, yet also so musically advanced at the same time. I've always said that it sometimes takes even more musical talent to take a minimalist album and make it really, really work and be very impactful. Because a lot of times, minimalist albums are good in concept, but they can be a bit boring. But on this album, on the new album here, it is very advanced, very atmospheric. They really utilize that motoric beat to a T. And it's just great production for the time, great effects, just solid track list. Really, really great album. New from 1972. The second album I'm going to be covering is from the Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables from 1980. Solid punk album to the T, with very kind of fun, very ironically written political lyrics, oftentimes written from the, standpoint of the oppressor. Like a song like Kill the Poor is written from the person who's in charge, the big greedy man who's oppressing. And I just love the ironic lyrics, the ironic tone of this album. And also, it's just a great blend of that traditional 70s punk sound with hardcore as well as that California surf element. To me, this is Dead Kennedy's best album. This is also their debut album. Really solid album. Not too much negative to say here. The third album I'm going to be covering in this video is from 9 Inch Nails from 1989, Pretty Hate Machine. This kind of goes off that industrial thing I was just talking about. A lot of the albums I'm covering here do have a bit of an industrial sound to them, and no artist really embraces industrial sounds more than 9 Inch Nails. Very excellent industrial album here. Solid track list, and it's very innovative and revolutionary for its time. A very solid electronic production that I think really does hold up to this day. And also, just while I'm at it, it's a great starting point for Trent Reznor. A really good starting point for 9 Inch Nails as a group. The fourth album I will be covering is from Godflesh, Streetcleaner. A really good, more industrial sludge metal album. Very excellent sludgy, very bass-heavy sound, and it's very consistently, it's very consistent throughout the entire project. And it's another one of those albums with a very immersive sound. You really get sucked into it the more you listen to it. And I really love the way there's the screeching guitars, which kind of take the place of traditional guitar solos that you hear a lot in, metal, and instead they provide much more atmosphere. It also has a very innovative use of a drum machine in place of a drummer. However, if you just listen to it for the first time, it would take you a little second to even realize that that's what was going on, because they produce it so well. The production on this thing is phenomenal, and it is no doubt an extremely influential album in industrial metal, sludge metal, and when you listen to Marilyn Manson and a lot of those artists which came after, you could definitely hear the influence of Godflesh, as well as this album, Streetcleaner from 1989. I believe the fifth album I'm going to be covering in this video is from Ministry. Kind of a next step in advancing the whole genre of industrial metal. Ministry, who's actually from my area, in the Chicago area, is a really great industrial metal album. A direct precursor to those kind of other artists I was just mentioning. Very great dark and gothic sound as well, which is something that really makes Ministry stand out. They really take that gothic sound of the 80s and really kind of just adapt it to the more metal sound that they were going with here. And it's just a really good blend of the two styles. Really solid track list. New World Order, I think, is one of the best industrial metal songs out there. So, Ministry Palm 69 is, I think, excellent album. I believe it's from either 1991 or 1992. Don't quote me on that. I don't want to be getting all that wrong. Excellent album. The sixth album I will be covering is an album which I find to be very underrated, and that is the Squarepusher album, Hard Normal Daddy, from, I believe, 1997 or around that time. It's a drill and bass album. It's a very electronic album as well. But one thing that really sticks out to me about this album, as well as Squarepusher as an artist as a whole, is that there's a lot of abstract and experimental elements of this music with a lot of jazz influence in there as well, which is something that a lot of these artists from this time period really didn't put in their music, but he really did. And it's a very underrated project, very underrated artist as a whole. This Squarepusher album to me is his best, and I love that little experimental and those jazz elements in there. The seventh album I will be covering is from worldwide famous rapper Eminem, the Marshall Mathers LP from 2000. By far my favorite Eminem album, and what I think is his strongest album by far. On top of his excellent pen game on this album, he's not doing the overly fast rapping, which he relies on these days. And it's a great blend of your standard Eminem tracks, as well as a lot more emotional songs, a lot more emotional ballad even type songs, well, for him, like Stan. And there's also a good blend of really hardcore, really hard-hitting, really kind of like getting you on the edge of your seat songs, such as Kim, which is my favorite song on the entire album. A song that's talking about an abusive relationship from the perspective of the abuser. Great album. Definitely, I think, Eminem's best album. The Marshall Mathers LP from 2000. The eighth album I will be covering in this video is from Rammstein. Mutter. Mutter is, I think, their most solid album, and I think it definitely is one of the most German-sounding metal albums out there, with that really good industrial metal sound, and Rammstein has always had a very dance element to them in a weird way. They're obviously influenced by bands like Depeche Mode, but I've always appreciated that side of them. I love how they kind of have that little dance element in there as well. Very solid driving beat throughout. All filler, or no filler, all killer. Peak industrial metal, especially for German stuff. Their sound is excellent on this album. Great production. My favorite Rammstein album. The ninth album I'm going to be covering is from Death Grips, The Money Store. Now let me get one thing out of the bat here. I really like this album. Not as much as Anthony Fantano does. But it's a very innovative, very captivating, and very advanced, creative, and aggressive album. The aggressive arrangements really kind of bring this really dark and gritty industrial sound to hardcore hip-hop, which is something that Death Grips has really kind of pushed the boundaries of. You know, bringing that industrial and experimental elements into the genre. I mean, they're far from being the first, but they're some of the most influential people to have done it, and it really pays off on an album like The Money Store, which definitely is a very influential album, especially when you hear a lot of hip-hop albums try to do similar stuff these days. Great album from 2012. I think they're a really solid group, and The Money Store is by far an excellent album. And the 10th and final album I will be covering in this video is from none other than Kanye West himself, Yeezus. Like Death Grips, Kanye brings a lot more electronic, a lot more industrial elements into his sound on this record from 2013, 1 year after. I have a feeling that Death Grips and those artists did influence him. That's just my personal feeling. This is also probably my personal favorite Kanye album, with a near flawless track list, great social commentary and social lyrics, raw, gritty production, and just tremendous instrumentals. I think probably his best instrumentals. I honestly like it more than My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I might get hate for that, but I genuinely think this is Kanye's most innovative, most groundbreaking, and just most solid album to date. So there we go. Those are the 10 albums I wanted to cover from New, Dead Kennedys, 9 Inch Nails, Godflesh, Ministry, Squarepusher, Eminem, Rammstein, Death Grips, and Kanye West. That is it for now. I really enjoy making these videos. I'm sorry for this lighting. It's very dark in here today. But great albums. Check them all out. And that is it for now. I will be back with more reviews soon. And goodbye.